The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Loss in our lives takes on many different forms and can be more than just a physical loss. It goes beyond that to include emotional loss, business loss, and loss of personal health. This is Voices for Healing with Cathy Roberts. Today, Cathy and her guests will help you find out that you are not alone in dealing with loss and grief. There are so many different ways to deal with loss. What works for some may not work for others. Together, let's find the solution that you can use. Here's your host, Cathy Roberts.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to Voices for Healing Talk Radio. I am your host, Cathy Roberts. In my work as a professional counselor and educator in the Washington, D.C. area, I work with people living with all sorts of losses, great and small. You can learn more about me and my work on my website, cathyroberts.net, and from there we can connect on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and more. You can also subscribe to Voices for Healing on iTunes and get regular podcast downloads of these radio broadcasts. We're conditioned to think of loss and adversity as bad and gains and happiness as good. The truth is, we never really know in advance what light may come out of darkness or what darkness may flow from what at first seemed to be a blessing. As we learn to see the universe as good and welcome all that appears, we get closer to knowing that everything holds potential for healing, especially when we hold the attitude that this is so. Today, my guest is Cindy Cecil Bragg, and we will be talking about laughter and the healing power of humor. Hello, Cindy. Welcome to Voices for Healing.
Hello, Cathy. Thanks for having me on.
I love hearing your happy voice. It's nice to have you here. Let me tell the audience about you and where we're going in the hour ahead, and then we'll jump in.
All right.
Cindy Cecil Bragg is all about teaching and preaching how to live the sweet life. Cindy is a regular on Washington, D.C. talk show Let's Talk Live, does stand-up comedy, has an Ask Cindy Advice column on her website, a blog, and has a CAPP, which is certification as a practitioner of applied positive psychology. She is a mom, wife, and hugger. Cindy was a TV producer at Showtime, Turner Network Television, and Rainbow Media before the mayor of her town nicknamed her the Whoopie Queen after tasting her amazing whoopie pies. Someone thought the mayor was calling her a tart, and never one to disappoint, Cindy put on a tube top and started her comedy endeavors. Her mission is to encourage others to use humor to create more joy in their lives. I want to share with you listeners that when I first contacted Cindy about being on the show, we thought she might have a small part on a tri-part show that I was planning to do with two other guests. But as we talked, she and I realized that we had a full show and we needed to take a full hour to have Cindy on the show. And so here she is. Here we are. Listeners, in the hour ahead, we will explore the physical, emotional, and spiritual benefits of humor and have some fun. Don Herold, a 20th century American humorist, put it this way: a humorist is someone who feels bad, but feels good about it.
I love that. I've never heard that quote. I love that.
I never heard of Don Herold before, but I love that Brainy Quotes website because there are a lot of good quotes there. And then I Wikipedia him and find out that he was a humorist who lived from about 1886 to 1966.
Oh, I want to find out about him. That is fun. I love that quote. Well, I do believe what he's saying in that I feel like you know, if you're someone who is going to look at life through some humor goggles, you don't see something bad coming your way as bad. You just go, all right, this is part of the adventure. How am I going to twist this into my story? So I love that quote so much. Thank you.
Yes, I did too. And I thought that it was representative of your story and the story that you shared with me about a really difficult time in your life and how things changed as you looked at it through those lenses of humor. I think your story is really inspiring, Cindy. So I'm glad you're willing to share it with our listeners.
Oh, thank you. That's that's interesting to hear because it just seems like it was such a little small blip, but it certainly transformed my life. Should I just dive in and talk a little bit about what happened?
Tell us about it.
So this has been 15 years now. I was a TV producer, as you mentioned, and I was on a shoot in Vancouver, and we had a free afternoon. We were shooting Stargate. Remember that series with MacGyver, Richard Dean Anderson?
The names are familiar, but I'm not much of a TV person. I'm sure our listeners, a bunch of our listeners do, even if I don't.
Show, and Richard Dean Anderson was MacGyver, so, there I was interviewing him and all the cast on the set and having a great time for a couple of days. And the work was done, and we had a free afternoon. I was with another producer, and I'm like, let's go to the mountain. We were near Whistler Mountain, which is beautiful. And we decided we were going to ski, but we didn't really have enough time to get our gear together and everything, so we rented a snowmobile. And they're very big, and I'm not a big person. I'm 5'4", so I was a little afraid and intimidated by how big they were. And I said to my friend, he's a guy, I'm like, well, you drive it and I'll ride behind you. I'd known him for years. So we're going up the path and we're on this snowmobile tour, and we're going pretty fast. And we're with about 10 other people, and there's a leader, and we went around a bunch. We were almost at the top of the mountain, and we hit an icy patch and slid into a tree, and the snowmobile rolled down the mountain. And Whistler is a big mountain. And so there we were rolling down the mountain, and I crashed and broke both my legs. And I remember laying in the snow with my feet like wet pasta noodles, just flayed out, and looking up. And what I saw wasn't I didn't see a bright light, or I didn't see anything that was could guide me to another place, except that my friend's pants had ripped from knee to knee. And so he, for some reason, oddly, wasn't wearing any underwear, and there he was exposed. The first thing I saw when I came to was his package.
Listeners, this is Cindy. There will be more.
In a wheelchair for 6 months. And he was saying, you're going to be okay, you're going to be okay. And I go, I'm really not. This is not what I want to see right now. Oh, God. And so then, I had surgery. It's a great place to have surgery, because they're used to dealing with it all the time. It's a ski town, and I had great surgery. And but then the reality of, having broken legs and I lived in New York City, so traveling, but even though I have a Southern accent, I grew up in a little town south of Atlanta, but I lived in New York for many years. And so it was, I flew across the country, and friends helped me, and I had, casts and in a wheelchair, and I lived in a 5th floor walk-up, so I couldn't live at home, and a girlfriend took me in, and she had a doorman and a beautiful building, and I sort of moved up in life. I ended up, her place was like the plaza compared to my apartment, so that worked out well, but there was a period of about a month where I was really, really blue. It was hard, and I had to get my head around how I was going to work this so that I wasn't stuck in a bad place. Because, first of all, you're in pain. A lot of physical therapy. My dad came up from Atlanta to help me out, and you're just displaced from I was displaced from my home. You can get depressed. And I think I had to get my head around making a choice. And so I found some humorous ways to do that.
I want to hear about those humorous ways. And before we get into that, I'm wondering if you had a sense of victimization, like how could this happen to me? And if you did, what that part was like.
Yeah, I think that's so common for somebody when something, what you might consider tragic, to something, of a tragedy, whether it's an accident or, a death or you lose your job. I feel like it's so easy to go into that space of feeling victimized. We're sort of hardwired as individuals to go negative. We're just hardwired that way because we, for, a long, long time, we didn't live in a world that we live in today. And so a lot of people, we didn't know where our food was coming from. We didn't even know if we would get eaten. So we're hardwired to be negative. And I, after the accident, felt very, very much like, why me? Why is this happening? I had to get myself into a place of interestingly, what happened after I got home, the guy I was seeing before the accident broke up with me. Couldn't deal with having somebody in a wheelchair. So that was another thing to compound on the fact that, I was displaced, alone from my family wasn't around. They were in Atlanta. I was in New York City. Just like I had to have a lot of physical therapy, and so getting to the doctor was difficult because I had to have an ambulance service take me, and when you're in a wheelchair, you're on a level with like dogs. I'm really afraid of dogs, and so a dog approaching me at that level was very scary to me. And then
I'm thinking about the double whammy that you had when you're already so low from the accident and what that's done to your body and your sense of yourself. And then to have a relationship end, I guess that was a good thing. You found out the quality of that person. But at the same time,
I had been seeing him for a while, so I was pretty devastated. It was a very devastating moment. And then someone sent me a CD of Dr. Andrew Weil. He's he's sort of a new age guru, if you will, and the CD was about healing with music, and so I would go to sleep at night with this music on, and I slept during the day too, and I don't know, just something about that, like, okay, there was a lot of great meditations in that, I can self-heal, I can, the goodness of that, and then learning the gratitude of what I had, that I did have so many friends, that my dad and my brother came up to help take care of me. I started looking at all the positive things. And so after about 4 weeks, I remember having a shift going, no, nothing is going to put me down. It almost like I felt like breaking my legs taught me how to stand. Because the relationship I was in with that guy wasn't so healthy, and it wasn't so positive, and he wasn't obviously the man for me. So I had to really come to grips with, I've let some things happen to me. And so the victimization things changed to, no, I'm not going to let this happen anymore. I am going to be strong, and I'm going to protect myself, and I am worth having a lot more goodness in life than what I've allowed in. And so it really, I did have to break my legs to learn how to stand up for myself.
And your shift there was a conscious one of recognizing that you have worth, you have value, even with 2 broken legs and no boyfriend at the moment. You really claimed what you did have in the way of health, friends, family, life. And it sounds like that was a very conscious moment for you, or series of moments.
It was a very, very conscious moment after being blue. And the people that I've worked with in the work that I do, I often find people like to stay stuck in that down, negative, victimized place. It's very easy to stay there. And I know that we need to process things. And so what I suggest is that if you need, you need to go through your process for as long as you need to do that. But you also have to function, and life is for the living. And so why not give yourself, an hour a day to be blue, an hour a day to feel really crappy, an hour a day to be the victim, and then turn it around and live your life. Get on with it, And so for me, the people who work with me are people who are really going to want to move it forward, because I know a lot of practices where they keep you stuck in that place, and that's not. We have this. I wonder often, are we living this life because this is the gift? Is this, I really do believe this. This is the gift. This is the only conscious time that we actually remember. So what if this is our heaven? And so that's where I go. This is your chance. You have one time on this planet. Let's do it up. Let's whoop it up.
Whoop it up. We're coming up on our break, and Cindy has already given you one practice that you can use when you're going through hard times. Take time to feel whatever it is that you need to feel. We don't want to abandon feelings that we're experiencing of blueness or anger or whatever it might be, and then get on with your life the rest of your day. As we take our break, we will come right back, and there will be more with Cindy on Voices for Healing.
Think you've seen everything there is to see in online television? Let us surprise you. Visit voiceamerica.tv today for sports, health, business, and more on demand 24/7.
Cathy Roberts is not only an exceptional radio host, she's an exceptional listener and counselor. Cathy appeals to motivated, high-functioning people to help them improve their health and vitality. Cathy can meet you where you are and help you identify what you want. Visit Cathy's website at www.cathyroberts.net or call her at 301-651-0019. Cathy works with both individuals and couples and specializes in grief and depression counseling. Get to know yourself by working with Cathy. Visit cathyroberts.net or call 301-651-0019. Cathy Roberts offers Circle of Voices teleclasses to help you focus your mind, engage your energy, and awaken your inner guide. Through this experiential and interactive series, you will know yourself more and learn to express yourself authentically in your personal life. Visit Cathy's website at cathyroberts.net to find out about this teleclass series designed to open you to change and engage healing in the fabric of your life. Go to cathyroberts.net or call Cathy at 301-651-0019 for more information.
Now you don't have to stay linked to your desktop or laptop. Take Voice America on the go and listen anywhere. Get our mobile app for iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android at the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
You are listening to Voices for Healing with your host, Cathy Roberts. If you have a question or comment for the program, please send an email to Cathy at cathyroberts.net. That's Cathy at cathyroberts.net. Now back to Voices for Healing.
In the 19th century, Henry Ward Beecher said, "A person without a sense of humor is like a wagon without springs. It's jolted by every pebble in the road." Many years ago, I was in graduate school, working part-time, married with 3 kids under 13. Lots of stress and pressure in my life. Friday evening was funny movie night, and those movies really helped me de-stress. Everyone's road is littered with pebbles. Let's come back to our talk with Cindy about the power of humor to ease life's pain. Before we get into the meat of the funniness and the humor, I want to deal with something that I have dealt with in my own life at times, and that is that sense of something is so difficult or so sorrowful that I'm not even sure I deserve to have humor or to have fun in my life at those times. And sometimes I feel that with other people that I'm working with. What are your thoughts about that?
That's so intense because when you're going through something really tragic, like a death, and you feel like of course you've got to grieve and you need that time. But this is going to sound so simplistic. The only thing I can think of is like, does a flower not deserve the sun? I mean, this is life. You're here on this planet and you deserve goodness. It's just that basic. It's just that basic.
That's beautifully said. I love your metaphor. And one of the ways I've thought of it is as a holistic practitioner. I think of joy always being available to us. It's always in us. It's always around us. And even in the midst of sorrow or pain, it's our job to look for it. Mm-hmm, and that's very similar to your metaphor.
Well, I have this great reference to a study that was done a few years back with a group of paramedics. And they use, like dark humor to de-stress. And they actually find that humor is more impactful than, speaking with their colleagues or venting or even spending time with their family and friends, that they can de-stress by joking about what's going on in these horrible situations. And there's actual words that are so widespread that some online dictionaries are starting to include them, like, when they talk about, they'll say acute lead poisoning refers to a gunshot wound. Or a celestial transfer describes a patient who has died. So, you just think about, like, they're dealing with really horrible, situations, and yet they've found a way to find, it's a release. It's another coping mechanism and a release.
About the time you and I were talking about this show and planning it, the Washington Post ran an article, a news story about an Iraqi veteran from Baltimore by the name of Joe Cashnow, who lost his leg in, I believe, in Afghanistan about 10 years ago. And he's now part of a group called Comedy Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And this
I think I've seen him perform.
You might have. He fronted for Lewis Black in town a couple of, maybe within the last month or so. I looked at him. I looked at him on YouTube to see what kind of humor he had and to read more about him. And he does talk about black humor. Not always, but at times he makes jokes about that IED he stepped on. And that's that kind of black humor that can actually be healing in its own way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, there's studies that have shown that because when we laugh, we release dopamine, and they found it's a very powerful neurotransmitter, and it is the regulator of the pleasure reward system. So it's laughing and humor, it has an effect on the brain as much as they've said is, let me see, where is this? Let me find this. As powerful as effects on the brain. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't find it. Hold on, let me look.
Okay.
Processing the brain. Well, I'll keep looking while we talk. But I think there was a study done. Oh, here it is, in 2004 from the magazine Neuron, and it reported that humor has a similar effect on the brain as much as a drug-induced euphoria. They've done brain scans.
I can, I don't know that I'm trying to remember if I've had a drug-induced euphoria from something or other, but certainly I think I have laughed so hard at times that I am in a kind of altered state. So I understand that. I understand that. Somebody said laughter is a jog for your insides. And that gives the idea that it's a workout. It's doing us good, and it's a good workout. And I think that's what that study is alluding to.
Yeah, and there's a whole laughter therapy movement. There's this one program called Laughter Yoga or Yoga Laughter, where it's big. It's all over the world, and they have a website, and you can go and take these classes. And it's really about expanding your diaphragm and the muscles in your abs. And they think they found a link to that certain, it's like exercise, but laughter, when you use certain muscles in your abdominals, that you release endorphins. And so that's what's the trigger. And so they're trying to find a link of how that works. But there's definitely a laughter therapy yoga movement happening.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. A couple of my friends have had training in that. And it reminds me of my own training I had in a different yoga program about 15 years ago. And that was where I first learned of the concept of laughter for laughter's sake, even when there's no trigger for laughter. This organization suggested, similar to laughter yoga, I guess, that by simply taking time to laugh each day, we could benefit our health. And for a while, every time I came to a red light, I would laugh. That was one of the things they suggested, when you're driving and come to a red light, stop and laugh. And so I think it's just a powerful way to experience healing. And yes.
Did it help? Did it change up your mindset?
It was fun to do. And that was the main thing. And I also love to think about and this would get me actually really laughing sometimes when I started it, was what other commuters might think as they looked over and saw this woman laughing uproariously in her car alone. That was sort of crazy alert. Yeah. That was sort of fun to think about too. And that would often get me really laughing.
I want to try that. I'm going to do that today. So I can have a little story to share with you. Who knows what'll happen, Cathy?
Oh, that's right. So, what I think we all experience it, and I wonder if there's other information that you might have about the effects that laughter has on our brains or on our stress levels or on our heart health. You mentioned the dopamine connection.
There's also studies have shown that when you laugh, your arteries open, and so that brings down your blood pressure. So there's heart health. There's boost to your immunity, because when you laugh, you're releasing those good, dopamine and endorphins, and, we have all these stressors and toxins in our body, and so by releasing this good stuff, it gets rid of those toxins, and so it boosts immunities. Let's see, I've got a whole list of the benefits of laughter. It lowers our stress hormones. It decreases pain. There's all kinds of studies being done about how laughter can actually allow you to experience pain in a different way. It relaxes your muscles. We talked about how it's good for your heart. Just mental health benefits. It adds joy and zest. It eases anxiety, relieves stress, improves your mood, enhances resilience. That's a big one. There's a lot of work being done on enhancing resilience by choosing humor. And as the social benefits, it strengthens relationships. You actually have a connection with people when you're in group laughing. There's a whole different kind of connection than you would laughing alone. And so it's a really, obviously when you go to a comedy club and you see a stand-up comedian or you see some improv, it's if you go with a couple people or a group, it's a really bonding experience. People who are funny are typically found more attractive. Whether they look it or not, there's something very attractive about somebody who's funny. It enhances teamwork. It can diffuse a conflict. It's really great in marriage if you can have like a ability to, when you're getting sort of stressed in a situation, where you can like diffuse it with humor, and that way it basically alters the path of where the argument might go. And here it says promotes group bonding, which we just talked about. So there's lots of great benefits for humor and laughter. And one of the things I did in my wheelchair is, after I got through my time where I was feeling, victimized, I had a meeting with myself, and I said, how am I going to make this my story? Like, how is this going to be part of my story in life? And how's this going to be part of my adventure? And so what I decided to do, it was beautiful. The weather was turning beautiful in New York, and it was like mid-May by the time I could actually take the wheelchair around by myself. Because when I first got the wheelchair, it wouldn't fit through the door of the door frame of where I was staying, so I couldn't go to the bathroom. There's so many things, and I had to get we had to get a special chair, and it was called a quickie. I have a quickie. Oh gosh! But we so once I could finally get myself around and wheel myself, it was about 4 or 5, 6 weeks in, and I decided the weather was beautiful. I put on a bikini, and for some reason, oddly enough, even though I was in a wheelchair, I lost a lot of weight. I don't know, maybe my body was just in super healing mode, and I'm not a really big person anyway, but I lost like any kind of fat I had on me. So I went down. It was like the only time I've ever worn a bikini in my life and felt great about it, in a wheelchair with 2 broken legs. And there I sat on the corner and just got sunshine. And I ended up knowing everybody on the street, and, the kids and the dogs became my friends because, I was out there every day. And I would sit out there and just talk to people as they came by and write in my journal, enjoy the tulips. It was like a beautiful time of year in Manhattan. So, and then my girlfriend started taking me out, and we would go out to, a bar or a restaurant, and so I started meeting people. And I also had more dates in my wheelchair than I ever had in my life. I think it's like a Cosmo story, just don't break your legs, but wear a sling if you want to attract some attention. And see what, I attracted really nice people instead of, I guess, some of the others that I was attracting before I broke my legs. So, I ended up, getting with the man that I am married to now. 15 years later, I'm married to, I had to break my legs to get my husband.
So Cindy's story is, I think, so inspirational, how she was able to take this incident that occurred that was really pretty devastating and begin to see humor in it, begin to live again, sitting on a street corner in Manhattan in a bikini and a wheelchair with 2 broken legs. Who would think of that? Somebody with a great sense of humor and a determination to heal. Cindy, we're coming up on our time for our next break. We'll be right back, listeners, with more conversation about humor with Cindy and Cathy.
Your favorite Voice America Talk Radio Network shows and hosts are in your car, outdoors, and wherever you need them to be. Listen anywhere. Get our mobile app for iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android at the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
Cathy Roberts offers Circle of Voices teleclasses to help you focus your mind, engage your energy, and awaken your inner guide. Through this experiential and interactive series, you will know yourself more and learn to express yourself authentically in your personal life. Visit Cathy's website at cathyroberts.net to find out about this teleclass series, designed to open you to change and engage healing in the fabric of your life. Go to cathyroberts.net or call Cathy at 301-651-0019 for more information. Cathy Roberts is not only an exceptional radio host, she's an exceptional listener and counselor. Cathy appeals to motivated, high-functioning people to help them improve their health and vitality. Cathy can meet you where you are and help you identify what you want. Visit Cathy's website at www.cathyroberts.net or call her at 301-651-0019. Cathy works with both individuals and couples and specializes in grief and depression counseling. Get to know yourself by working with Cathy. Visit cathyroberts.net or call 301-651-0019.
Your favorite Voice America Talk Radio Network shows and hosts are in your car, outdoors, and wherever you need them to be. Listen anywhere. Get our mobile app for iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android at the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
You are listening to Voices for Healing with your host, Cathy Roberts. If you have a question or comment for the program, please send an email to Cathy at cathyroberts.net. That's Cathy at cathyroberts.net. Now back to Voices for Healing.
According to actor and comedian Peter Ustinov, comedy is simply a funny way of being serious. Cindy and I were just talking about that in the last section of the show. And now we'd like to move on to talk about what people might do to bring more humor into their lives. I bet our listeners are wondering that, Cindy. Can you share with them what your thoughts are? Because you are a master of that.
I have all kinds of ideas.
Or a mistress of that, perhaps.
I am the mistress of fun ways to bring more laughter into your life. All right. Well, first of all, I'm going to give you some specific ideas and then some general. There's one, if you want to cry out laughing today, you go to YouTube and Google or search Jeff Gordon's Test Drive. He's a race car driver, and he goes to a car dealership, and he basically takes an unsuspecting character on a test drive who wants to buy a car, and he's flying around all over, and that guy is about to, pee his pants. So it is really funny.
Yeah, the guy doesn't know it's Jeff Gordon.
No, he doesn't know it's Jeff Gordon. It makes me crack up. So I cry from laughing at that. So that's if you like an immediate boost of fun, I go there. I look at Impractical Jokers. It's on True TV, but they also have a presence online. And it's a group of 4 friends who've known each other forever, and they compete to get points by using like an earpiece, and they tell them things they have to do with other people, and they get points by doing it or not completing the task. It's funny. There's a new commercial out for Poopery. Say it with me, Cathy. Poopery. It's this English woman, and she's talking about how there's a special spray that you can put in your toilet to keep the smell from the nasty, happenings in the bathroom. And it's just they're both. There's one from about a year or so ago, and then there's a new one out, and they crack me up. The girl's wonderful. So those are some specifics. I also love the Goldbergs. It's a family show, and the mom on that show cracks me up, and they're always yelling at each other, and they're just funny. It's a funny family, and they love each other big. Some general things to do: watch a funny movie or a TV show. I mean, Saturday Night Live is happening right now. Happening in that they've got some fun stuff going on. Go to a comedy club. I have a comedy show coming up this Friday. If you're in the D.C. area, we can talk about that later. But yeah. Read the funny pages. Hang out with other funny people. Someone who brings you lightness and joy. Hang out with that person. Learn a good joke or think about a joke someone's told you and make it your own. Host a game night with friends. I recently did this. We had a Hollywood game night, and everybody wore costumes. I do a lot of parties with costumes because I think as grown-ups we don't get to dress up enough. So I had Elvis. I was Jane Lynch. I had a crazy short wig on and a suit. We had Katniss. We had the woman from the Home Alone movies, the mom. Just make an event for people to enjoy. Another thing is to play with your pet and goof off around kids. And more than anything, to add more joy and laughter is to make time for fun activities. So many people leave it out. I mean, when's the last time you went to do a karaoke night or bowling or miniature golfing? I mean, find at least once a week where you're doing something fun.
You're reminding me of my talks I used to give over the last couple of years about a new disorder that I created that should be in the next DSM, which a lot of people in the Washington area, maybe other areas, suffer from, and that's fun impairment disorder.
Ooh.
Yes. I call it FID. And a friend of mine inspired me to create this disorder when she told me that she wasn't having enough fun. And I thought, a lot of people aren't having enough fun. We can be awfully serious. And I fall into that category at times myself. So I know something about it.
I'm a regular on a TV show called Let's Talk Live here in the D.C. area. And when I'm waiting to go on, I'm always hanging out with the other guests. And they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I go on and talk to people about how to have more fun in life. And every single person says, oh, my God, I need you. It's so true. We all need to have more fun.
It is very true. And I just think it's fun to joke about how we don't have enough fun. So I'm glad you're bringing fun into our lives this morning.
Thank you.
I think humor offers people real opportunities to connect and have deeper relationships. And you mentioned a little of that when you were talking about the list of things that humor helps us with in our lives. I'm wondering, though, if you have any anecdotes about how humor has, I said the word antidote, I meant anecdote, about how humor has deepened connections with people in your life.
Well, I think my relationship with my husband there's a lot of laughter and humor between us. We'll send each other jokes, and we text during the day to say hi. And I have a case of fat fingers, and I don't know why, but I always, put things on on the text that just end up being funny, and we'll laugh about that. Like I sent him a text last week, and he was going to pick up my son at the lacrosse field, and he said, it was a monsoon here last week, and so he's like, did it get canceled? And I said, no, they're on the turd. I meant turf. So we had to laugh about that. So there's a lot of laughter in my life with my husband. He's a very funny man. Then there with and when we argue, we don't argue a lot, but oftentimes if we have an argument, one of us will try to jab each other with a joke so that we lighten the tone and can shift where we're going. But even with my kids, like my son, he's 11, and there's now some, preteen behavior happening, and I wanted him to help me. This was like just 2 weeks ago, clean up the dishes after the dinner. And he's like, "Oh, Mom," he's giving me that whole scene, and it triggered me inside. Like I was really pissed because I was like, "You know what? Come on, you help me clean up, and you don't have to hardly do anything." I went there. You know how we spin in our brain. But instead, I clicked it. I made a click, a real conscious choice in my brain, and I said, I tickled him. And I was like, come on, let's see how fast we can do this. And I can beat you. I know I can beat you. I'm going to put in more than you. And count how many things you put in the dishwasher. And so I changed it up, and we ended up laughing. I could have made the night a disaster if I had gone down that negative path with him. So I feel like, I could go on and on. I think it's a choice. It's a mindset. And I obviously don't always have it. I mean, someone said to me the other day, we were talking about my work with the positive psychology program I'm involved in. It's at the New York Open Center, and I was at my son's soccer team or my daughter's soccer team, and one of the moms said, "God, Cindy, this whole positive thing. I just look at you," and she goes, "It makes me exhausted. It must be exhausting being you." And I laughed, and I was like, and I just laughed. I didn't say anything to her, but I wanted to go, yeah. And how's that negativity working for you?
Yes.
And I did, and I thought to myself, you know what? I have more energy than most people that I know, and I think part of it is because of the choices I make. And I'm not saying I'm any better than anybody else, but it is there for any of us. It's just a choice.
Well, you've lived it, and you've made some conscious choices along the way to bring more laughter, more humor, more of you, and that is a part of you. And I think you mentioned to me that your family did that as well growing up. Is that correct?
Yeah, my grandfather, you couldn't talk to him without knowing if he was telling the truth or giving you a joke. So much so that I gave him a mini cassette recorder, this was back in the 90s, And I said, look, I want you to walk around with this thing. And he would just tell jokes all day to everybody, and I have a recording of him with all of his jokes, because you would never know if he was telling you the truth or something. And then my dad's a joker, too. And so I think I definitely learned it through my family.
Yeah, I think there are families that use humor to cope with whatever's going on, and it's a wonderful coping method. You know, when you were talking about the texting, I think there are so many funny texts because of autocorrect on our smartphones that think they're smarter than us sometimes. And I'll share a funny story also. I was getting ready to go meet up with a man I was dating, and I was a little late getting started, and so I texted him what I thought said, "Leaving now." Well, I didn't think anything of it until the next day I happened to look, and what it had auto-corrected to was lesbian now.
He was excited, I bet. He was like, oh, this is going to be a nice night.
So it led to a very fun series of, we live about an hour and a half apart, and so we often are texting when we're leaving, and it led to a series of all sorts of things. We were, gay guy now, or whatever, so that we just kept that going, and it was a little bit of spontaneous humor that entered into our lives and really
so fun.
made life more fun. And I've seen on Facebook and other places where they post whole conversations that people have had by text that are
I love them. They're so
uproariously funny.
So funny.
So yes. I have noticed this, and maybe it's my own sometimes tending towards seeing something negative, but I notice sometimes humor can be used in a kind of negative way where it can distance people. Have you noticed that as well, or is that just me?
I see it a lot because I'm out doing open mics, and a lot of it is, I call it put down humor, and for some reason, there aren't that many women that do humor, but a lot of women even take it to the place where they put themselves down. And I want to shake them and go, no, no, we can't do that. Of course you can laugh at yourself, as long as you own it, and then you're empowered, and that makes you somehow, badass on that stage. But when you're putting yourself down, and I think it's exactly how we started this conversation, the difference between being a victim and being like, the hero of your life, if you will. It's that difference. And if you own it and celebrate your misfortune and laugh at it, then it is a very positive way of dealing with pain. And a lot of comedians, that's where they source their humor is from, pain. But it's where if they own it and enjoy it, or if they put themselves down or other people down about it, is really where the line is.
I'm glad you mentioned that distinction, because when I look at a few comedy shows from, say, the 60s or 70s when I was growing up, it's a very different kind of humor than it was in the 90s or 2000s when my children were growing up. And the humor seemed to shift from kind of silly, kind of goofy, maybe some putting yourself down, a lot of doing the unexpected, some conflict or unexpected thing happens that is uproariously funny, to more of a kind of put down sort of humor. And I hope we're trending away from that now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. That's an interesting thought. It would be an interesting study to look at, comedians over the years and the types of humor that is popular.
Yeah. Cindy, I can't believe it. It's time for us to take our third and final break. So let's think on that for a moment and come back to it after our break. You're listening to Voices for Healing with Cathy Roberts and guest Cindy Cecil Bragg, and we will be right back.
Looking for exciting video content live and on demand? Visit www.voiceamerica.tv for exclusive content you just can't find anywhere else. That's voiceamerica.tv. Tune in now.
Cathy Roberts is not only an exceptional radio host, she's an exceptional listener and counselor. Cathy appeals to motivated, high-functioning people to help them improve their health and vitality. Cathy can meet you where you are and help you identify what you want. Visit Cathy's website at www.cathyroberts.net or call her at 301-651-0019. Cathy works with both individuals and couples and specializes in grief and depression counseling. Get to know yourself by working with Cathy. Visit cathyroberts.net or call 301-651-0019. Cathy Roberts offers Circle of Voices teleclasses to help you focus your mind, engage your energy, and awaken your inner guide. Through this experiential and interactive series, you will know yourself more and learn to express yourself authentically in your personal life. Visit Cathy's website at cathyroberts.net to find out about this teleclass series, designed to open you to change and engage healing in the fabric of your life. Go to cathyroberts.net or call Cathy at 301-651-0019 for more information.
Find out what's happening on the Voice America Talk Radio Network by keeping up with us on Twitter. You can find us at Voice America TRN.
You are listening to Voices for Healing with your host, Cathy Roberts. If you have a question or comment for the program, please send an email to Cathy at cathyroberts.net. That's Cathy at cathyroberts.net. Now back to Voices for Healing.
Well, I want to have Cindy have a chance to tell everyone about her comedy show that's coming up this week. You know, I went to one of Cindy's comedy shows 2 years ago. I remember it very clearly because I had sprained my ankle 4 days before the show. And I probably should have been home with my ankle up, but I had so much fun, laughed so hard at your comedy show. I was up dancing with a broken ankle, or not broken, but sprained ankle, which was probably not good, but it sure was fun. So
isn't that funny that you were dancing at a comedy show? Those are the kind of shows I like to put on. A real event. I have one this Friday. It's at the Mayflower Hotel, the infamous DC Hotel, the Mayflower. And it starts, the doors open at 7. The show starts at 8. You can find tickets through my website. Just go to whoopiqueen.com. It's WHOOPIE, and then Queen, QUEEN.com. The show this week has a couple of local comedians. I have a headliner coming in from Connecticut, and she's very well known in the comedy world. Her name's Jane Condon, and she won the audience favorite on Last Comic Standing, so she's a big deal.
Oh, good.
And then I have a burlesque troupe coming down, and they're going to come out in Wonder Woman costumes. And then I have a woman who's a sexpert, and she was also voted, this is so crazy, DC's top dominatrix.
Uh-huh.
And her name is Domina Fontana, and she's going to do some Q&A. And then we have a DJ. So it's a real event. It's a huge event, and it's in honor of a great women's organization called Global Girl Media. And they give girls a camera and a platform to talk about issues locally and make them citizen journalists. And these girls are from all over the world. It's a great organization, Global Girl Media. So come to my comedy show this Friday. I would love it. I would love to have someone come up to me from the radio show and go, I heard you on the radio.
I would love that, too. That would be really super, and let me know when it happens.
Okay.
All right, back to our conversation. Let's see. Many humorists, Cindy, have really lived through some difficulties, and we've talked about that a bit, and you yourself are one of them. Are there things that we can do to develop an attitude of finding humor in challenges?
I think there's a really great exercise, and you can journal or it can be a mindset. But what you do is you take the thing that's happening and you make it outlandishly profound and extreme. Okay? So let's do something together, Cathy. Give me an example of something that you found annoying or, frustrating. Do you have anything recently?
Oh, I'm sure.
All right, I'll give you one.
Okay.
This is a little crude, but hey, I'm a very busy mom, and I now the kids are a little older, so I've become the chauffeur in the afternoon. And so I was joking the other day with a girlfriend that, no one ever told me when I was holding up that cute little onesie that in 5 or 6 years I would be so busy I'd go to change my tampon and I'd find 3 up there. I know it's crude, and it's a complete, extreme, profound, ridiculous part of what would happen, but that's what you do. You take a situation and you make it outlandishly crazy, and then that makes you laugh.
Yes.
And there's another thing you
I'm
can
going
do.
to practice that. I need practice with that one.
Yeah. And then there's another thing we did in a workshop I recently gave where we did an improv game. I have taken improv. I'm not as I find improv a little harder, but the games are super fun. And that there's this one called Yes and you start off a story and then you take it and you go yes and. So, I could start off a conversation with like, yes, and I had to take my children to 5 places in one afternoon. And then the next person would say, yes, and then you had to make dinner. And then like you take it and yes, and then you had to figure out what you were going to wear to your comedy show in feathers and sequins. Like you just take something extreme, and then you could take, so we did this little chain story. We started out having a party in, where were we? A party in the Bahamas wearing a coconut bra. And then the next person would add on to it and add on to it and add on to it. So that was another fun exercise. And then I have one more example of a friend who has people get up in front of the group and they talk about their darkest shame. And then the gal who's hosting the workshop, she and a couple other people help her turn it into her most proud moment by making it humorous.
I was just reading a process that I had taught to some people in the past, which was about taking a story and telling it in 3 ways. This comes from the work of Rosemary Altea, and telling it in 3 ways. And in one way you tell it so it's just so sad it could make somebody cry, like you could do with your broken leg story.
Right.
And then you tell it again in a way, it's the same story about the same incident, but you tell it in a way that makes your audience just cry with laughter this time. And finally, you tell it a 3rd time, if you're so inclined, in a way that inspires people. And that's my contribution to this discussion of.
Well, there's a whole trend on narrative healing, in that, like, by telling your story, you get out. I think that's similar to comedy on stand-up. But, I think that it's starting to really happen in small groups. It's called narrative healing, and where you take your own narrative and you transform it so that you're not the victim.
Yes, and that's what really this show is about, and I'm so glad you're bringing this out so clearly, because what I'm really hoping people get out of Voices for Healing is that they can have personal mastery of their lives, of whatever's happening. You can take it and transform it and claim something good and wonderful and alive in it. I really appreciate you helping us to do that today.
Well, you're doing good work, Cathy. Thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We only have about 3 minutes left in the show, Cindy, and you mentioned another study about something about prisoners of war. Do you think we have time to talk about that a little bit, and then we'll close?
This is about resilience, and I think it ties right into the narrative. So these people were POWs, and they did a study with a group of about 50 of them, which, if you think about it, there aren't that many POWs that have been, I don't know what the actual number is, but that seems like a large study for such a small group. And they did links between humor and resilience, and it showed that it was much more apparent with the ability to use humor in telling about their life. And they found that that the men learned to rely on their own power and draw their own sense of personal mastery by using humor than the guys who were in the study who didn't. And it was a real force of resilience and working through fighting back and taking control. Humor allowed them to do that. And so that's part of that mastery thing you were talking about.
Yes. Well, I am so glad you're here and sharing your story with us. Maybe in the last minute or two here, we can recap some of the things that we've talked about that seemed important. And 2 of them that I want to share and highlight are, number 1, when you are going through hard times, to take some time to honor that, even when you're having a really, really rough day, and then get on with the rest of your day. Find ways to be grateful for the things you do have, as Cindy was for her friends and family, and her attitude, even when she was hurting and healing. And know that laughter and humor is good for mind, body, and spirit. Helps with all of those. Cindy, anything you want to add as a recap?
I would add that, we went over a lot of ways to find more humor in your life. And so just, think back through, all those shows and other ways that you can find, make it a practice to add more humor to your life. You don't have to be the one who's doing the comedy. You can add it in other ways so that you're laughing. And then also to really reframe your tough situations with absurdity so that you can laugh at them and own them in a whole different light and make you more resilient.
Perfect. As you talked, I thought about one of my favorite things to do is to go to YouTube and look at some of the pranks. I don't like the ones where people get hurt, but some of the pranks are really, really funny, as is one of my favorites, which is while you're on YouTube looking at Jeff Gordon, check out Bodhisattva on the Metro as well. If you haven't seen that, that's a really good one, too. It's not the Washington Metro. I think it's somewhere in Europe.
Okay.
Cindy,
fun.
Thank you so much. Listeners, thank you, too, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Get out there and make your own whoopee in the world.
Make your own whoopee in the world. Straight from the mouth of the Whoopee Queen. Next week, my guest is Jude Gladstone Cade, an amazing woman who found more joy and delight in life by living aggressively through cancer. Until next week, transform loss, embrace vitality. This is Cathy Roberts on Voices for Healing.
Thank you for listening to Voices for Healing. Please join Cathy Roberts again next Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. We wish you the best recovery from your loss, and we'll talk again next week.